It started with a box of chocolates left on her doorstep. But by the time I was pinning a man to the frozen ground in my backyard on Valentine's night, I knew this wasn't just some harmless crush. This was personal. I've been with my girlfriend, let's call her Jules, for 3 years now. We first started talking after I replied to one of her Instagram stories. Just a little comment, nothing dramatic. But from there, things moved quickly. Soon I had her number, then Snapchat. Within a week, we met up in person. We started hanging out right after the holidays that January, and I remember how oddly comforting it was not to dread Valentine's Day for once. No awkward loneliness. No pretending the holiday didn't exist. But as Valentine's Day crept closer, and we'd only been on a few dates, Jules told me something that instantly shattered the mood. She had a stalker. His name was Leo. A guy a few years older who met her at a commuter college during some group project. At first, he just seemed clingy, following her around campus, messaging her constantly, but it escalated. She said he somehow found out where she lived and started sending her disturbingly personal texts. Stuff she never responded to. I asked her why she hadn't blocked him or gone to the police. She said she wanted to see how far he'd go, like she needed to confirm just how obsessed he really was. That answer didn't sit well with me. But she seemed calm, almost too calm, like this wasn't her first time dealing with something this messed up. She said she was only bringing it up now because, apparently, Leo had started texting again. Right in time for Valentine's Day. She showed me the thread, unanswered message after message piling up. Creepy stuff. Then came the next level. He left a box of Russell Stover chocolates on her porch. That might not sound like much, until you factor in the text he sent afterward. "Hope you like the gift I left you." She freaked. That was the line. She finally responded with a long message, one I didn't read out of respect, but she told me the gist. He needed help, and she was with someone now. He needed to back off. Still, she couldn't shake the fear that he'd followed her home one day. It was the only explanation that made sense. I told her I'd do everything I could to keep her safe. I meant it. Then, a few days later, she sent me something that turned my stomach. It was a screenshot, text from a fake number. The message asked if I was the guy she was dating. By name. That was the first time I really felt involved. No longer just Jules's P. Maximum, this guy knew who I was. And if he knew that much, what else did he know? I told her point blank, if he reached out again, we were going to the police, together. Then came Valentine's Day. That year it landed on a Friday. Jules and I had dinner reservations at a nice place by the water. We sat outside, perfect weather, candlelight, waves lapping quietly in the background. That's when we saw him. A man was sitting alone on a liak by the edge of the parking lot, wearing a hat pulled down so low it almost looked comical. Jules nudged me and whispered, "What if that's Leo?" We both kind of laughed. Nervous laughter. Until the guy tilted his head toward us. He looked our way, just for a second, then snapped his face back forward and stood up. Without another glance, he walked off. The laughter stopped. Neither of us said it aloud, but we both knew there was a real chance that had been him. Still, we tried not to let it ruin the night. Eventually, we relaxed, finished our meal, and decided to keep hanging out. Her parents were home. I had the place to myself. So we drove back to my rental. We were on the couch, just enjoying the night, when Jules pulled back and whispered, "Did you hear that?" I had. Something outside. "Want me to check it out?" I asked. She nodded. I slipped on my slides and stepped onto the back patio, expecting to see maybe a raccoon, or some garbage that had tipped over. I walked through the yard, and that's when I saw it. The entire stack of beach chairs leaning against the side of the house had been knocked over. Weird. There wasn't a breeze, not even a gentle one. The air was still. Silent. I scanned the yard. My eyes moved past the bushes surrounding the property, and then, I don't know how to explain it, I just knew something was off. There was something tall wedged among the branches. Too tall. Too still. I squinted, leaned in, took a few slow steps closer. My brain hadn't even finished processing it when I suddenly realized what I was looking at. A man. He was standing in the bushes, watching me. My voice cracked out. "Who is that?" The man moved, fast, trying to push through the tangle of branches toward me. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I met him halfway and tackled him while he was still tripping over twigs and brambles. Slammed him to the ground. My adrenaline was white hot. I shouted at him again and again. "Stay down! Stay the hell down!" That's where it really started. Where things stopped being creepy and turned dangerous. Where he made it clear he wasn't afraid of being seen anymore. I shouted for Jules again, louder this time, until she finally rushed outside. I kept the guy pinned to the ground, muscles tight, heart racing. "Call the police!" I snapped. He thrashed a little, tried to wriggle free, but I had a solid hold. He wasn't going anywhere. Jules stepped out, phone to her ear, panic in her voice as she relayed the situation to the dispatcher. I looked at her and said, "Is it him?" She gasped and stepped back. "Oh my God, yes! That's him. Leo. The same creep who'd been harassing her for months. The same guy who sent her dozens of texts and chocolates. And suddenly it all clicked. The same exact green shirt as the man on the liak at the restaurant earlier. The hat, the posture, the vibe. It was him. He'd followed us. The cops arrived fast, thank God. They cuffed him and read him his rights while Jules showed them all the evidence. The obsessive messages, the calls, the gifts. They charged him with trespassing on the spot. But that wasn't all. Jules pressed charges for stalking and harassment too, and after a lengthy conversation at the station, they issued a restraining order. He got slapped with a misdemeanor and a fine, which honestly felt too light for what he'd done, but at least it was something. And since then, he hasn't tried to contact her again. That was 4 years ago. Jules and I still talk about it sometimes, especially when Valentine's Day rolls around again. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened the next year. It started with a couple staring at us from the sidewalk. It ended with us being followed into the woods. It was almost Valentine's Day again, and I had made plans with my new boyfriend to have a simple, cute dinner out, just something sweet like everyone else does. We were walking up to the restaurant, hand in hand, when I noticed them, a man and a woman sitting on a liak just outside the entrance staring. No attempt to be subtle. Just cold, quiet stares like they'd been waiting for us. I nudged my boyfriend, and we kept walking, trying to ignore it. He gave his name at the host stand, and we were told it'd be about a 45-minute wait. Fine, we'd kill time. He suggested the mini-golf place across the street. That's when things got weird. As we turned to head back to his car, the woman stood up. She raised her hand like she was about to greet a longtime friend. "Hi there! I'm Mrs. Dalton," she said, smiling a little too wide. I glanced at my boyfriend. He looked confused. Her hand was still outstretched, so I shook it, not wanting to be rude. She launched into this weird pitch. Said she and her husband, who still hadn't spoken a word, were photographers. That we were a great-looking couple, and would be perfect for some photos. She claimed their studio was just a few minutes away, that they had no business cards on them, and they'd be happy to drive us there right now. Every possible red flag started waving in my head. My boyfriend politely declined, saying we had plans. She smiled and sat back down, eyes never leaving us. As we got in the car, I turned to him and whispered, "That was creepy." He agreed. Especially since the husband hadn't said a single word. Mini-golf turned out to be empty, which was strange on its own. It wasn't a huge place, and from any part of it, you could see the front door. That made what happened next even more unsettling. We were on the 5th hole when we heard the bell chime at the entrance. I turned to look, and froze. It was them. Dalton and her husband. She scanned the place, and when our eyes met, she gave me that same bizarre smile. Something about it didn't feel human. I told my boyfriend they were here, and we both agreed to leave. It had been just over 15 minutes anyway, Our table would maxably be ready soon. But as we turned to go, they were right behind us. Smiling. Again. Crazy how we both came to this spot, she said, with that same sugary voice. This time, the husband spoke. You two should face each other. Dalton versus Brooks. Brooks. My boyfriend's last name. Neither of us had said it out loud. Neither of us had given them that information. We didn't ask questions. We just got out of there. Back in the car, I told him I didn't feel right and we should just call it a night. My parents wouldn't be home until Sunday morning anyway, so we could just relax at his place. But he was insistent. Let's eat. Don't let those freaks ruin our night. We waited in the car, talking through how weird everything had been. Eventually, the restaurant texted. Our table was ready. Dinner went fine. Quiet. But I couldn't shake the feeling. While he was in the bathroom, I thought, just for a second, I saw her. That woman. Peeking around the corner of the dining room. When I blinked, she was gone. Must have been my imagination. We finished up, and he insisted on paying. His treat for Valentine's. Then we got in the car and started the drive to his house. Now, to get there, there's this long, narrow road lined on both sides by dense forest. No street lights. No homes. Just trees. We'd been on the road for maybe 3 or 4 minutes when we heard it. A loud pop. Something under the car. He slowed down. Pulled to the side of the road. And that's when the fear started again, cold and creeping. Because behind us was a car. Headlights off. Just sitting there in the dark. Watching. The pop was loud enough to make us both jolt. He slowed to a stop, opened the door, and that's when he saw it. Both front tires completely shredded. No time, he muttered. They're coming. He sprinted to my side of the car, yanked open the door, and shouted. Get out, now! I stumbled out, too stunned to question him. He shut off the engine, cut the lights, and locked the doors with trembling fingers. My mind raced. Why aren't we just staying in the car? I asked, panicked. We can't. Not if they slashed the tires. They knew we'd come this way. We bolted into the woods. Branches scraped against my coat as we ducked behind a dense cluster of trees and crouched low. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest. He pulled out his phone and called the police, whispering the situation into the receiver. The operator asked him to stay on the line, but he shook his head. Can't. They're close. And he hung up. We lay there, dead still, pressed into the frozen dirt. And then, we heard it. An engine. A car creeping down the same road, tires crunching softly on gravel. Get down, he hissed. We flattened ourselves behind the underbrush, not daring to breathe. The car slowed to a stop just a few feet away. Then came the voice, too familiar to be mistaken. Shit! We took too long, said Mrs. Dalton. Her voice carried, sharp and irritated. A door slammed. Then, suddenly, the sound of a car speeding off. We didn't move. Not until flashing lights swept across the trees and a patrol car pulled up, spotlighting the area like a crime scene. 2 officers stepped out, and we stood, brushing leaves off our coats, trying to explain everything through chattering teeth and shaky breath. They took our statements and told us they'd follow up if anything came up. But nothing ever did. I called my sister, who picked us up, and he called a tow truck for the car. To this day, we never found out who they really were or what they wanted. But we know one thing for sure, they weren't photographers. Now we're married. And that night? It's become the kind of story we'll tell our kids someday. But that wasn't the last strange Valentine's Day I had. A year earlier something different happened. And even now, I'm not sure what to make of it. It was fall 2018. I was enrolled in a few online classes through a top-tier college, but I already knew I'd be transferring back to a local university near my hometown in the winter. Still, I wanted to make some friends, and maybe meet someone along the way. Enter Tinder. I matched with a girl who seemed genuinely cool. Smart, funny, easy to talk to. We started dating, and things were going great for a while. She wasn't local, she was from out of state, and after Thanksgiving, something changed. Her sarcasm, which had once been playful, started feeling mean. Not abusive, just sharp. Uncomfortable. I chalked it up to final stress. Everyone was burned out around then. Then winter break hit, and she went home. We still talked every day, texts, snaps, FaceTime here and there. But when the new semester rolled around, I moved into a small off-campus apartment. Cozy, clean, and surprisingly affordable. We broke up the night of my first class back. She missed her family. She didn't get along with her roommate. She was isolated, homesick, and sad. And honestly, I think it was for the best. I'd been too afraid to end things myself, but I was quietly relieved. The sadness lingered for a while, though. I'd had plans, cute little surprises I'd prepped for Valentine's Day. It sucked knowing they'd go unused. That week, just a few days before the holiday, I gave in and reactivated Tinder. I figured maybe I could find someone to talk to, maybe go out with, just so I wouldn't be totally alone while all my friends were off with their partners. I wasn't desperate, yet. I matched with a few girls, but most were just looking to party or hit the bars. That scene's never really been my thing. I'd rather chill at home with a movie and some good food. That's when I matched with Dana. She was different. We clicked immediately. She wasn't into the party stuff either, said she'd rather have a quiet night watching movies. Same here. Same major as one of my close friends too, though she wasn't sure if they were in the same section. Still figuring out names and faces. She had shoulder-length blonde hair, cute little glasses, freckles, and bright blue eyes that popped even through a grainy profile pic. We messaged for about an hour before I asked for her Snapchat. She sent it over without hesitation, and our conversation moved there, faster, more casual, more personal. And that's when things started to feel a little strange. I asked if she wanted to hang out on Valentine's Day, and without hesitation, she said yes. It was 2018, and the holiday landed on a Thursday that year. Lucky for me, I didn't have any Friday classes, and Dana said she'd skip her morning ones so we wouldn't have to cut the night short. Things felt easy. Comfortable. The evening was surprisingly simple but nice. We grabbed McDonald's, caught a movie, then strolled around downtown in the snow. Just a low-key, cozy kind of night. Eventually, we ended up back at my apartment. I won't get into the details, but everything went smoothly, no red flags, no weirdness. Afterward, she asked if she could spend the night since it was snowing, and her place was about a 10-minute walk away. Of course, I told her yes. We fell asleep around 1 a.m. I'm a light sleeper, always have been, especially when someone else is in bed with me. So when Dana stirred a couple of hours later, I noticed. It was around 3 a.m. She quietly got out of bed, thinking I was asleep. I watched through half-lidded eyes as she walked toward the bathroom. She clicked the light on and gently closed the door. I was too tired to care and drifted back to sleep. Until 5:30 a.m., when I woke up again. The bed beside me was empty. I sat up, squinting at the bathroom. No light leaking from under the door. No sound. I grabbed my phone, no text. No. Hey, I left early. Or anything. Her clothes were still on the floor, next to mine. So she had to still be here. That's when I heard it, a faint creak. It came from the other side of the room. I turned, and my stomach dropped. Dana was standing in the corner of my bedroom, facing the wall. Perfectly still. Just standing there. I sat frozen for a second, trying to process what I was seeing. Dana? I called out softly. Are you okay? No answer. I reached over and clicked on the small lamp on my nightstand. The light wasn't bright, but it was enough. I got out of bed slowly and walked toward her. Dana? I said again. Still nothing. She didn't flinch. Didn't even seem to breathe. I placed my hand gently on her shoulder. It was ice cold. 10 full seconds passed. Complete silence. Then, without warning, she spun around with inhuman speed, eyes blank, and started screaming. Not yelling. Not crying. Screaming. She hit me, wild open-palmed strikes. Not hard, but erratic. Fast. And worse, her face showed nothing. No anger. No confusion. Just emptiness. I stumbled back and fell onto the bed, shielding my head as she kept shrieking and hitting. My mind was short-circuiting. What was happening? After about 30 seconds, she stopped. Ran to the floor, grabbed her clothes, and sprinted out the door, leaving it wide open behind her. I jumped up, slammed it shut, and locked it. And that's when the smell hit me. Something foul was seeping out from the bathroom. I hesitated, then walked toward the door, slowly twisting the handle. The second I opened it, the stench punched me in the face. The room was a disaster. Shower curtain yanked down. My medicine bag dumped onto the floor. The tiles soaked with water. And on the mirror, smeared feces. I called the police immediately. An officer showed up about 20 minutes later. I gave him what little I had, a single Snapchat photo I'd saved because I thought it was cute. But it had a filter on it, and her profile was already deleted. There wasn't much they could do. They took a report, advised me to have someone stay over that night, just in case she came back. So I called Max, one of my best friends. Coincidentally, he was also in the same major as Dana and had classes with her. At least, that's what she claimed. I showed him the picture. Asked if he recognized her. He didn't. Said he'd never seen her in that class. Not once. That night, we stayed up late watching a movie, trying to laugh it off. But the unease never left me. We passed out around midnight. At 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of the front door handle being jiggled. Someone was trying to open it. Quietly. Persistently. It went on for about a minute, then stopped. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. No one there. She never came back. Nothing's happened since. But the feeling that I'd let a stranger, someone who might not have even been real, into my life and my home, still messes with me. The food was easy. The nights were quiet. And honestly, I didn't mind working alone, until the night someone came in who wasn't supposed to. I was covering the late shift at the pizza place again. It was a Tuesday, so I knew what kind of night to expect, slow, uneventful, and just me killing time in the back while waiting for the occasional order to come in. I clocked in around 9 p.m. and took over from the day manager. Nothing special on the schedule, no rushes expected. I prepped the back line and leaned into the lull. By 11, things had already died down. Just a couple of walk-ins, one delivery. After that, silence. I pulled up a chair in the back, scrolled through my phone, and let the quiet settle in. Then, around 1 a.m., the front door bell rang. That bell only ever rang when someone actually opened the door, and after so many shifts, I knew that sounded like my own name. I got up, expecting some bleary-eyed drunk customer wanting a slice. But when I stepped into view of the front counter, no one was there. I stood completely still, scanning the empty tables and entryway. Nothing. Nobody. Not even a shadow. A weird smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. I actually laughed a little. Guess I'm hearing ghosts now, I thought. I triple-checked just to be sure, doors shut tight, no one hiding behind any booths. The place was dead empty. I shook it off and went back to the kitchen. Didn't even think about it again, until 15 minutes later, when the bell rang again. This time I hadn't been watching anything or lost in thought. I definitely heard it. I walked up to the front, slower this time. Still, nothing. I opened the door, poked my head out, and looked up and down the sidewalk. Dead silent. No cars. No wind. Just cold stillness. That creeping confusion started to set in. I jiggled the door, tested the bell, tried to figure out if maybe it was just glitching somehow. But no, it only rang when someone opened it. Weird, but what could I do? I stayed up front for a while, just waiting. 30 minutes passed. No bell. No customers. Eventually, I went back to my spot in the kitchen. Somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., that dead zone of the shift, the bell rang again. This time, I didn't move. I just sat there and listened. The hair on my arm stood up, and I don't know why, but I called out. "Hello? Someone out there?" Silence. I didn't hear a response. No footsteps. No door creak. Just silence. I figured it was the same weird glitch as before and stayed put. But deep down, something felt wrong. The next hour dragged. Not a single customer. The quiet started to feel unnatural, like the whole world outside the restaurant had just stopped. At 4 a.m., I got up to start prepping for the morning shift. I went to the front, counted the drawer from the few orders I'd had earlier, and that's when it hit me. Something felt off. Like I was being watched. I glanced up from the register to the empty lobby. Then back over my shoulder toward the kitchen. Stillness. But not the peaceful kind. The kind that makes your instincts scream. I tried to shake it off. Maxibly just nerves. The night had been weird, sure, but nothing had actually happened. Until I heard it. Thump. It was the sound of a boot hitting the floor, right behind me. I spun around and nearly stopped breathing. There was a man standing barely 6 feet away. He was dressed in black, tattered clothes. His hoodie draped low, shadowing his face so that only the glint of his eyes showed. Bloodshot. Empty. His hand was clenched tight around a knife. I froze. He didn't speak. Didn't move. Just stared. I swallowed, my throat dry as sandpaper. "Hey, look, man." I started slowly, trying to keep my voice calm. "You can take the cash. I won't say anything. Just please let me go." Nothing. He didn't blink. Didn't react. Just stood there, breathing heavy, his knuckles white on the handle of that knife. That was the moment I realized. I wasn't dealing with a guy looking for money. This wasn't a Maxbury. This was something else entirely. Something darker. Something wrong. The counter I stood behind formed an L shape. He was close, too close. If I tried to run, I'd have to move toward him first, loop around, and sprint to the front. He could reach me in 2 steps. So I did the only thing I could think of. I jumped. I threw myself over the counter, arms scraping against metal, crashing hard onto the tile floor on the other side. Pain shot through my side, but I scrambled to my feet and ran. The second I cleared the counter, I hit the ground hard, but I didn't stop. Because when I looked up, he was already charging at me. His face twisted in this raw, animalistic rage. There was no hesitation, no demand for money, just pure, violent intent. Bloodlust. I bolted through the front doors, not even daring to look back. I heard him burst through behind me, heavy boots slamming the tile, then the concrete. He was gaining. My car was parked behind the building. Too far. If I stopped to unlock it, I was done. So I kept running, straight into the street, just praying anyone would drive by. But then, nothing. The footsteps behind me stopped. I didn't know when. I was too focused on running to notice. When I finally slowed and looked around, I was alone. I grabbed my phone and called the cops. They arrived within 5 minutes. Fast, but not fast enough. He was gone. The officers checked the place, and that's when I found out what he'd done. After I ran, he'd gone back into the restaurant and torn it apart. Tables flipped, register cracked open, sauce and supplies thrown across the floor like he was trying to erase the place. Then he slipped out the back door. On his way out, he scraped his knife across the side of my car. Deep. Deliberate. That's when it hit me. He had to have been watching me for a while. Maybe from across the parking lot. Maybe through the windows. And the doorbell? That was the perfect distraction. Maybe he was hoping I'd waste time checking the entrance while he slipped inside through the back. And the scariest part? There was almost an hour between the last bell and the moment I saw him. Which means he might have been inside that whole time. Hiding. Watching. I never saw him again. The police never found him. I quit not long after. A few months later, I was back to working double shifts, trying to scrape together enough for a condo. My full-time 9 to 5 paid the bills, but the delivery gigs kept my savings moving. On this particular night, things were going unusually well. Great tips, smooth deliveries, back-to-back orders. It got late though, and I should have called it a night. But greed has a voice. And that voice said, "Just one more." So I kept driving. The orders dropped off for a while, but then one popped up, nearly $20 for a 15-minute delivery. Jackpot. I accepted it without a second thought. Once I had the food, I started heading toward the destination. That's when the roads began to shift. Quieter. Narrower. Woods on both sides. It was a part of town I didn't even know had houses. My GPS confirmed I was still on track though, so I kept going. Eventually, I reached the final turn, onto a well-kept gravel road leading deeper into the forest. After a minute or so, I pulled up to a small gate. Not the kind you'd expect at a private property, just 2 old pillars with a chain draped between them. Only this chain wasn't up. So I kept driving. My headlights didn't do much in the dense dark, but not far past the gate, the path opened up into a small parking area. And that's when I got confused. There were no houses. Just trees, trails, and a sign on one end of the lot. It was a forest preserve. I'd delivered to parks before. Campgrounds even. But at this hour? Forest preserves usually closed around 8 or 9. No one should have been here. Just as I started questioning what the hell I was supposed to do, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. The voice on the other end was deep, gravelly, barely intelligible. "Yeah, I saw you pull in," the man said. "Can you see me?" I looked around. "No," I said. "Where are you?" "We're down the trail. Got a campfire going. You should see the light if you walk a little ways." My gut clenched. "I thought these places closed at night," I said. "This one's different. Overnight camping's allowed on certain days." I wasn't outdoorsy, so I didn't know if that was true. But I figured that explained the big tip. I agreed. Hung up. Turned off the car. And stepped out into the dark. The moment I did, I realized how dark it really was. Like can't see your hand in front of your face dark. I flicked on my phone's flashlight and grabbed the food bag. There was only one trail leading out of the lot. Narrow and straight. So I followed it. Everything was dead quiet. Just the soft crunch of gravel beneath my shoes. Not even the buzz of insects. No laughter. No voices. No music. Nothing. I kept walking. Then I saw it, faint and flickering, tucked between the trees maybe a couple 100 feet up the path. A campfire. Finally, I thought. Just a group of guys out late doing whatever. P-maxibly drunk. P-maxibly harmless. P-maxibly. But as I got closer, I realized something wasn't right. There it was, an orange flame flickering through the trees. But something about it felt wrong right away. It wasn't on the trail. Wasn't tucked just off the path. No, this fire was far, deep in the trees, burning in a place that didn't make sense. I couldn't tell if there was another path leading to it or not, but I didn't really think about it. I just stepped off the main trail and headed straight for the fire. The closer I got, the weirder it felt. There were no voices. No laughter. No camping gear. No signs of a group. Just a small fire burning alone in the dark. No chairs. No tents. Just open dirt, surrounded by trees. I barely had time to whisper, "What the hell?" under my breath when I heard a sharp snap behind me. A stick. I spun around. There was someone standing off in the woods, just far enough that I couldn't make out their face. They weren't moving. Just standing still, half hidden behind the trees, like they were waiting to see what I'd do. My whole body tensed. "Hey!" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm the delivery driver. I'll just leave your food here." I set the bag down beside the fire, That's when he moved. The man stepped out from the trees, tall and broad, with a scruffy beard and dark hair matted to his forehead. He had this forced smile on his face, like someone practicing what happiness is supposed to look like. He raised a hand and said, "Sorry, didn't see you coming up." His voice was unmistakable, deep, gravelly, and strained. The same one from the phone. And now that he knew I had seen him, he suddenly wanted to be seen. That smile stayed frozen on his face, like it was stitched there. Something in my gut twisted hard. I tried to respond, stumbled over my words, but I could feel every instinct screaming at me to leave. I turned and started walking. Then speed walked. Then ran. Behind me, he called out with that same fake nice tone. "Hey! Come back! I've got cash! You forgot your tip!" I didn't stop. I made it to the parking lot and fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking too much to get the damn door open. I finally shoved myself inside and started the engine. As soon as I threw the car in reverse, I slammed on the brakes. The chain. It was back across the entrance, latched between the pillars. When I came in, it had been down. Now, I was locked in. I froze, staring at it, trying to figure out if I could get out and undo it before he caught up. Then I heard it, footsteps crunching the gravel behind me. I didn't look. I didn't need to. I floored it. Swerved around the pillars, barely missing the short ditch that ran along both sides. If I had veered just a little too wide, my car would have sunk in and I'd be stuck. Once I hit the gravel road, I floored it all the way out of those woods. I should have called the cops. I know that. But by the time they got out there, he'd be long gone. And part of me didn't want to go back to that place, even with backup. The next morning, I looked it up. That forest preserve? Closes at 8 p.m. No overnight camping. No fires. Ever. Whatever I walked into that night, it wasn't a delivery. It was bait. And I'll never stop wondering what would have happened if I had followed him any deeper. It's funny how many of these nights start out the same, quiet, normal, boring even. Like the one where I was working alone at a data center, doing what I always do, nothing. My job's easy. I sit in a tiny warehouse office hybrid building overnight, monitoring the server systems. If anything goes down, I go reset it. Simple. Since it's a night shift and nobody else is there, I usually do whatever I want, watch shows, eat snacks, whatever. As long as the systems stay green, I'm golden. That particular night, I got in around 10 p.m. The building is tucked at the end of a long road, right next to a stretch of dense trees. No neighbors. No traffic. Just the occasional raccoon, maybe. I checked the monitors, everything normal, then loaded up Netflix on my laptop. 2 episodes in, must have been about 2 a.m., a notification popped up. One of the systems had lost connection. I sighed, paused the show, and got up. This happens maybe twice a week. Just a simple restart. I made my way downstairs and through the long, echoey corridors until I reached the main server floor, a massive storage room with tall metal shelves and glowing boxes humming in the dark. The screen told me the P-Maximum was at the very last row. The farthest corner. Figures. As I turned the corner into that last aisle, I saw it right away. The power cable wasn't just unplugged. It was pulled. Laying on the ground like someone had yanked it free. Heavy-duty server cables don't just fall out. Not those thick industrial-grade ones. But that night, apparently, one did. I stared at it for a second, just lying there on the floor, like it had been ripped loose. Not frayed. Not broken. Just unplugged. Like something, or someone, had tugged it free. Still, I reached down, plugged it back in, and booted the system. Everything came online without issue. The network monitor lit back up in green. The only logical explanation was that it had slowly worked itself out over time. Maybe from vibrations or something. I'd never seen it happen before, but hey, first time for everything, right? I decided to do a quick sweep of the rest of the aisles while I was down there, just in case anything else was loose. Everything looked normal. I made my way back through the corridors toward the control room. That's when I heard it. A dull, heavy thump. It echoed faintly, like a large door slamming somewhere deeper in the warehouse. I froze for a second, listening. This building's old. Pipes knock, vents groan, metal shifts. But this sound, this one was new. A deep, hollow slam, like something heavy being shut somewhere it shouldn't have been. But I didn't know the full layout of the building. If it was a door, I had no clue which one it could have been. I told myself it was maxably just old plumbing groaning again and headed back to my chair. I double-checked the monitors, everything steady. Systems running fine. I put my show back on. But I didn't get far. Maybe 5 minutes later, right in the middle of a quiet scene, I heard it. Footsteps. Fast ones. Just outside the office. It sounded like someone running. Just a couple steps, like they were darting from one door to the next. I paused everything and stared at the door. Then I stood up, opened it, and peeked into the hallway. Empty. Just a long corridor with a door at the far end. But it sounded like someone had been right outside, practically brushing against the walls. I knew I wouldn't be able to let it go unless I checked. So I headed toward the end of the hallway and pushed open the door. And down the next hall, I saw it, just for a second. A door on the opposite end of that corridor was slowly swinging closed. Someone had just gone through it. My heart jumped into my throat. I stepped closer cautiously, forcing myself to breathe. The hallway ahead was lined with office doors, none of them labeled, all of them dark. "Hello?" I called out. "Is someone here?" No answer. Just silence. I stepped inside. The echo of my own footsteps bounced off the concrete walls. The lights overhead buzzed faintly. Everything was still. Too still. Then the thought hit me. What if someone's hiding in one of these rooms? I stopped walking. That sick, heavy feeling crept into my gut. I turned to leave. Took one step back toward the door. Bang! One of the office doors beside me flew open. I caught just a blur of movement, a man sprinting out of the unlit room. I didn't even think. I bolted. His footsteps pounded behind me, growing louder as I whipped around the corner and into the corridor. I could hear him chasing me. I didn't risk the main stairwell. I hit the fire exit, slammed through the door, and burst into the cold night. I didn't stop until I reached my car. As I fumbled for my phone, I kept glancing back, half expecting to see him charging after me through the shadows. But he never came out. I called the police. They got there fast, and searched the entire building from top to bottom. Took nearly half an hour. He was gone. They figured he must have slipped out through another exit, and maxably disappeared into the woods behind the building. Looking back, a lot started to click. The server that lost power? That was in the farthest corner. He maxably bumped into it while creeping through the aisles, not realizing it would trigger an alert. The thump I heard earlier? Could have been him slamming a door. Maybe realizing I was still in the building. The company launched a full investigation. Security footage. Inventory checks. But I wasn't authorized to see the outcome. All I know is that someone, was in there that night. And I interrupted him. Whatever he was doing, I don't think he expected company. And I'm pretty sure he was trying to figure out what to do with me. Thankfully, I didn't stick around long enough to find out.